Hi everyone, welcome to episode number 32 of Perfect Inspiration. My name is Brian Matias. So I remember being excited for this episode because I was out here shooting very recently, and this is the Cedar Creek Grist Mill. And the weather was awful. It was raining pretty hard, but we're just starting to get our peak autumn foliage. The trees are starting to change colors, and so we decided to go out and shoot. Now, before we begin, let me show you where the Cedar Creek Grist Mill is. It's in Washington. So we drove from Portland up to Washington. It's about a 45-minute drive. And then if we zoom in really tight, you can actually see you kind of come up this road here, and there's a parking area right here. And most everybody shoots from this bridge over here. This is a covered bridge. It's actually a very pretty covered bridge. And there's rushing water coming through this way. So the really famous spot is right here shooting in, and that's what you see over here. Now, what I wanted to do is walk you through kind of the evolution of the shot, and that's what this episode's about, is kind of tweaking everything. And so this is the very first shot that I started with. I stood here, and I'm going to try to explain why I moved on, why one shot didn't keep from the other. This was taken, let me just see here, this was taken with my 24-105 Canon lens and my Lee Big Stopper 10-stop neutral density filter. So that's why we're at 30 seconds rather, at f4. I wanted to get the longest possible shutter speed so that the water itself would have this really nice pleasing motion. And I loved the kind of bubbles that form on the surface here from all the rocks. And you can see that it casts this really nice kind of white ghosting pattern. So this is the first shot. I looked at it, and mind you, it's raining. It's raining good. But we have some cover. We're by that covered bridge, and I have my rain cover on my camera and my rain cover on my bag. When I saw the shot, I immediately said no, and the reason for that was because right here, this little bit of tree that's blocking the main waterfall, I didn't like that. So we moved on. I also didn't like that I had over here cut off part of the building. So I swiveled left, and I still had this part of the fall covered, and then also, to make it worse, I had the car in this shot. So I immediately abandoned that. Started playing around some more, maybe a tighter zoom. And actually, I think it was soon around here that I noticed that this tree was blocking. And so you could see these little kind of minute adjustments. Then I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to do anything about this tree. Let me see if I can get some foreground. And so there was a nice tree overhanging, and you can see what I'm trying to do here is try to get some sort of foreground. Then I said, you know what? Screw it. And what I did was, let's go back to the map for a second. You can actually climb down. If these trees were removed, there's actually a pretty steep hill, but it lets you get closer to the base of the water. And so what I did was I abandoned my position up on the top of the bridge and started climbing down. And you can see just from here, you see the kind of downward perspective. And then we climb and we're starting to get slightly upward. And so I still have the problem here with the tree. And then I thought, all right, let me adjust the focus altogether. I swiveled the camera to the left here. And I started getting compositions that I was happy with. I also got a little bit lower, and I started to have more visibility in the waterfall in the background. And so I ended up, this is the final shot that I ended up with. And you can see here, it's significantly brighter. Just the composition itself is much more pleasing to me. We're kind of almost at level with the foundation of the grist mill. And we have a really nice pleasing flow. There's a lot of leading lines here. You got lines coming down here. You got lines coming through here. So it's really, really nice. Now it's time to stylize. So, it wasn't just a one-shot wonder, even though this is technically kind of a one-shot wonder. This particular scene is pretty much relatively the same shot that most anyone else is going to get, except for the differences, the variables of weather, light, time of year, time of day. Here we've got, it's been raining a lot, so the water flow has been very heavy. And we're getting close to the peak foliage season, so you can see that the trees are, despite the fact that the sky was totally gray, which was great for us because it was totally even light, you can start to see the colors start to change here. So let's go ahead and let's start stylizing this. I'm just going to go to Perfect Effects for this one. So I'm going to go to File, Plug in Extras, and we're going to send it to Perfect Effects 4. All right, so in Perfect Effects 4, what I want to do is, I don't want to necessarily change the image too much, but I want to bring out all of the natural colors of the image. So to start, as my foundation, I'm going to go to the landscape category here on the left. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to apply Magic Forest. Now, I actually like the way Magic Forest looks here at 100%. I could go back and I can drop it at 0 and bring it up slowly, but when I was practicing on this image, I actually really liked 100%. Now I'm going to click Add, and I'm going to scroll up to close the landscape category, and I'm going to go to the solid photo filters category and apply blue. Now blue is specifically for the water. So you can see that blue applies everywhere to the image. I'm going to take my masking brush, I'm going to invert that effect so it hides it, and then I'm going to turn on the perfect brush. The perfect brush is going to give me edge detection. So I'm going to start drawing in, and I'm leaving it at 100% right now because I want to see the effect on the water. And you know, I get sometimes called out on this, like, why is your water blue? It's really, really blue. For me, it's a stylistic option. And when I think of water, you know, in an ideal kind of fantasy sense, I like thinking of it in a kind of a really cool, you know, electric blue. Not necessarily a neon blue, but something that's really, really, really bright. And that's what I think of water. When I think of water, I think of the color blue more than anything else. So you can see here, let's turn on the mask. And so you can see it did a really nice job here. The perfect brush, we're just going to refine some stuff here, kind of get around the rock. You can see how it doesn't mask the rock, just masks the water around it. And that's again because of the perfect brush. So I'm going to go here and just kind of get a few more spots there, right there a little bit. That was really nice the way it kind of cut through. And then right there, just get some of that water there. All right, so we're looking pretty good. I'm going to turn the mask, let me actually just get right there. There we go. All right, I'm going to turn the mask off. And now what I'm going to do, now that I've got the mask going, I can drop that amount to 0 and just control how much. So here, maybe about 60% looks good. You get that really nice blue look. And then I'm going to click Add to move on to the next layer. So now I have taken care of kind of a global effect, and I've taken care of adding a blue look to the water. Now I want to deal with the grist mill. So for the grist mill, let's close out of the photo filters, and I'm going to go back to landscape. And at the bottom here, there's an effect called Vecchio. And we're going to do the exact same thing that we did with the blue. I'm going to take the masking brush and I'm going to invert with the perfect brush on, and I'm just going to start masking through the grist mill. And so I'm just kind of going really quickly. I'm just going to go through the whole thing here, but I'm going to stick with the wood primarily. I'm not going to really try to get any of the, oops, that was concrete. I don't want that there. All right, let's go through here. And just, you can see how I'm just kind of with the perfect brush, just going pretty quickly. Again, the perfect brush, wherever the arrow in the middle of the brush draws over, that's the color it samples. So that's why we're able to get some really nice edges here. And I'm also going to get the shingles on top because I don't like the way it's standing off from the rest of the building. So I'm just going to kind of make it match. Let's bring up the mask just to make sure. Okay, we missed some parts here. This is the kind of effect that you really want to make sure you get all the edges, and we'll worry about the cleanup afterwards, but you don't want to miss anything in the middle because it's a pretty intense effect. All right, let's turn that off. Everything's looking pretty good here. I'll switch to paint out mode, and I'm just gonna kind of get along the edge here. Okay, now with that done, what I'm gonna do is actually, let me paint out over here too. I don't want that. All right, I'm going to take that the Vecchio, and I'm going to bring it down to 0, just like we did with the blue, and just like we did also, I'm going to bring it up to about 70%. I really want this to be very, very warm, almost kind of a nutty, warm color. All right, let's click Add. And now what I want to do is just bring out the overall tone of the image. So I'm going to go to the Effect options, and I'm going to select Tone Enhancer. So with Tone Enhancer, I can adjust things like bringing out the shadows or highlights, as well as controlling the curve here, the tone curve. So I'm going to bring the local contrast up to about maybe 35, 36. That looks good. And I'm also going to bring out the shadows because it's a bit too dark for me. So I'm going to bring it up to about 23 or 24%. Maybe a little bit more. There we go. Now with that done, I can take the overall strength of that, bring it to 0, and I only want about half of it. Something about there. So you can see what that affected if we turn it off. See, just it brings out the shadows, especially in the darker areas. It brings out more detail. And to wrap things up, the last thing I'm going to do is add a slight glow. The reason why I like adding glows at the end is because it really adds a very, very strong contrast punch. So I'm going to go here to the glow category. And then, without a doubt, my favorite is Deep Forest. So we're going to add that. I'm going to leave it at full strength for a second, and I'm going to bring the blending options because I don't want the normal blending mode. I very rarely use a normal blending mode with a glow effect. I'm going to go to Soft Light here. Click Apply, and then bring that to 0. And I only want about maybe 40% of it. Something like that. And so you can see here, let's go to that preview. This is our original. Remember I said I'm not looking to go really crazy. I just want to kind of bring out the fantasy feel. And to me, this looks like something you just stumbled on in the middle of a forest. So now that I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and click Apply so that we can return back to Lightroom and we'll finish off this image. All right, so now we're in Lightroom. I went straight to the develop module, and I'm going to start, as always, with my tone. And so I start with the highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. But before that, I'm going to bring out the overall exposure just a bit to make it overall brighter. And then I'm going to press and hold the Option key on a Mac or the Alt key on a PC while dragging on these 4 sliders. So press and hold, highlights. And what I'm doing here is I'm adjusting the slider so that I barely see any dots. And that's going to give me the correct highlight levels. Same thing with shadows. So we've got a lot of clipped shadows, so I'm going to bring that out a bit, try to bring back some of that detail. You can see how it just does a really nice job of evening out the exposure. White point, same thing, we're pretty good there. And the black point, I'll bring that out a bit too, but I kind of like having some deep blacks. Now I'm going to bring up the contrast overall and some global clarity. But what I'm going to also do is take an adjustment brush here, and I'm going to select the exposure drop down. I'm going to keep the exposure kind of high, and I'm going to bring out some clarity. And I'm only going to draw it on these wisps here, and I want to really bring them out. See how they kind of really pop out. Now, I'm going to go to the erase here, the erase button, and I'm going to remove this a little bit right there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop that exposure down just a bit. It's a bit too bright. So something like that looks good. I'm also going to draw it over here. And so that's looking really nice as well. I'm going to click New, and I'm going to create another custom brush. I'll go back to exposure. I'll make that also kind of bright. I'll bring up the contrast, a little saturation, and a little clarity. And I'm going to bring out this rock over here and just kind of some of the moss and rock. I really like the way it kind of complements the scene. And then I'm going to go ahead and just draw also a little bit of it on the grist mill so that it could stand out as well. And then close things up. We'll go ahead to the vignette and add a little bit of a post-crop vignette just to bring the eye more towards the center of the frame. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm also going to go back to the saturation slider. I'm going to drop that down a bit. It's a bit too strong, but I'm going to bring out the vibrance. Yeah, that's looking really good. And so here you have it. And again, this was my one-shot wonder, but if you remember, let's go to the grid view for a second. You know, there were a bunch. I see here there were 12 images that it took for me. And mind you, 12 images. Here there's 30 seconds, 50 seconds, 64 seconds, 60 seconds, and so on and so forth. So this was upwards of about 15 minutes, if not a little bit longer, before I finally came to this last shot here that got me where I wanted it. And I could have even gotten lower if I wanted to, but it was really wet, really slick, and I didn't want to risk falling down with my gear. So I got this shot. I was really happy with it. And then we used Perfect Effects to just bring it out and give it that magical look. So be sure to download the preset that you can use in Perfect Effects for to get this. And then starting next week, we're going to actually have a two-part series with my coworker Candace Christensen from On One Software on how to kind of prepare images in a really easy way and to build them for holiday cards for the upcoming holidays. So look forward to seeing you then. Have a great week.